Salaam Alaykum, sir.
Alaikum salam. How are you?
Alhamdulillah. How are you?
Excellent. Thank you for your patience.
No, sir. Thank you to you. Thank you so much.
Okay. All right. Ayesha Ahmad.
Yes, sir.
Am I pronouncing that correctly?
Yes.
Okay, great. All right. Well, it's my pleasure to finally meet you after all of the back and forth emails. Um, I'm very encouraged by the things that you ask about. I think they are excellent questions and excellent concerns,
Mm-hmm.
because it shows me that you are indeed, first of all, a true human. Those those people are hard to find these days. One who is
I,
trying to be true to themselves is what I'm saying,
mm-hmm.
as well
Mm-hmm.
as be true to the responsibility that they believe they have to other people also.
Mm-hmm.
Concerned about other people's feelings, especially concerned about what other people think, and not to interrupt anything good that's going on for anybody else, despite what's happening in our own little world. And that's what
Yeah.
qualifies a person as true human.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to actually go in the order that you suggest as far as what your priority concerns are or your priority questions. I can't promise that I'll be able to answer all of them.
Okay.
Well, two things. I won't be able to answer all of them within an hour's worth of our conversation, and I won't be able to answer all of them in depth because they are so deep as concerns. So we'll do the best we have with the time we have, and whatever the spillover is, we'll save it for another session. It can be as early as next week if you're available.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't want to inundate you, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I do want to fill your cup, so to speak, as far as your curiosities, and have you walk away from this session saying, "Yeah, I got a lot out of that." So that's
Mm-hmm.
my objective, to make sure that you walk away satisfied with the interchange.
Inshallah. Okay.
Okay. So where do you want to begin?
I wanted to begin with the alphabets of my name. Do they tell some talents or my purpose somehow? I
Mhm.
recently came across this book, The Soul Plan. There, I studied the Hebrew alphabets and the Aleph, the air, the Shin, the fire, the Meme, the water. And then I was
Mhm.
like, why the three alphabets? These. What about the other alphabets?
Mhm.
And then again, I studied the Kabbalah, and there I got the Sagittarius, Sun sign, Moon sign, all that stuff. So
Mhm.
I was observing this stuff because since day one, it's all about knowing myself.
Yes.
I'm trying to knowing myself.
Mhm.
And since my story goes back with my grandfather choosing my name and with all these numbers and alphabets, and I have this curiosity, it's just obsession with me because to me it doesn't seem these symbols, these alphabets, these numbers doesn't seem like just that. It seems like it's subconscious, unconscious, something deep, like we have forgotten or they made us forgotten. So yeah. So is it possible with the alphabets? Do they tell something about me?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I'm going to say, as a first answer, yes. I'm going to say as a second answer that it is not as important as you might think it is. Now, the reason I say that as a second answer is because all of the alphabets have been invented by the minds of men.
Yeah.
Yeah, Allah didn't invent the alphabet. Scholars
Mhm.
invented the alphabet, and they applied meanings that they discovered or that they made connections with. They applied those meanings to the letters. So you have a
Yeah.
lot of people, especially in the Kabbalah system, um, what they call the 10 Sephiroth, and these other
Yes.
attachments that they have to these symbols. But again, all of these symbols were invented by the minds of men.
Yes.
There's no Sephiroth shape in the universe.
Exactly.
There's no perfectly straight line in the universe.
Yes. That's
Yeah, if you put it under a magnifying glass, you're not going to find what we call an absolutely straight plane or an absolutely
yes.
straight line. It's going to always have some jaggedness, almost like a lightning bolt type shape. the straightest of lines, even the ones that we think we're writing on the paper. If you look at it up close and personal through a magnifying glass, you're going to find that it is not absolutely straight, just like we can't draw an absolute circle with our own hands. You can do it with a machine, but you can't do it with your own hands. It's going to always come out as an oval. So Allah, as you know, says in the Quran that he has filled this universe with ayat, which is translated as instructing signs. You know, when you travel on the road, you know, we see many signs. More or less, they're giving us instructions, but not all of the instructions are important to us. You know, like McDonald's 3.5 miles to the left. I don't eat at McDonald's. So that sign is not important to me as an instruction. But an instruction that's going to save my life, like bridges out, you know, in 2 blocks, you know, make a U-turn, dead end, and that kind of thing. So there are going to be some signs that represent much more importance to the person who's driving along the road. In this case, the road would be as-sirat al-mustaqim, the straight road, the straight path. All of us are by nature put on that path by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We're actually born onto the sirat al-mustaqim. We're born onto it. And proof of that is that there's no such thing as a newborn infant who is corrupt. Fitra. Born ala fitra. And it's the world beginning with its parents, you parents out there, who take it off of the fitrah and cause it to go in some wayward direction. So the first premise then is that Allah created the human life to be good and upright. Just like any infant, Adolf Hitler, whoever the worst person on earth, Firaun, you know, whoever the worst person on earth turned out to be, they did not begin that way. So therefore, you cannot blame that evil on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You can only blame it on yourselves. And Allah tells you that in the Quran. All of the good is from Allah and all of the other stuff is from us. He's not responsible because he gave us the kind of human brain that can differentiate and tell the difference between when we're doing something wrong. And he not only gave us stuff in the environment to make us aware of that, he put something in the fitrah of our own nervous system that tells us, yeah, I don't think you should do that. Yeah, I don't think you should have said that. You know, a little moral conscience, we call it, right? So all of these primary tools have been created by Allah and installed in us as programs. And that program was designed to keep us on the Sirat al-Mustaqim. Make sense?
Yeah.
All right, so let's differentiate then between what the fitrah is actually presenting or representing to us and what the world of scholarship and, you know, critical thinkers and, you know, other people, spiritualists and these kinds of people, they present to us things like the Sephiroth and the Kabbalah and the crescent and star as a symbol of our religion, you know, those kinds of things, right? But again, all of those are from the minds of men. And there's an easy way to tell, Ayesha. And we're going to go into some deep things in a minute. I'm just trying to, you know, create the environment for the rest of the information. There's an easy way to tell when it's from Allah or when it's from the minds of people. And that is whether you can find it in the fitrah. It's really that simple. When I look at the symbol of the star and crescent that the scholars have given us, that we now have called our national or even international flag or symbol, the star and the crescent. When you think of star and crescent, you think of Turkey, you know, you think of, you know, all of these other Muslim countries that have adopted the star and crescent. But there's no way that the sky can show you that level of proximity of the moon from the star or the star from the moon. In reality, the star is too close. The star would actually have to be in front of the moon for you to get the picture that they give us as the star and crescent, because the star is somewhat, it's being cradled by the moon. Just like a mother who's cradling her child. The child has got to be close to her for that to happen. So who are these thinkers in the world who has given the Muslim world these what I like to call fake, phony, fictitious symbols? And I say that not because they are all guilty of doing it consciously, but scholarship, historically speaking, have always seen themselves in like a match of wits and wisdom, but they've seen themselves in this match for wits and wisdom, not with another scholar. They tend to see themselves as matching wits with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so they're fighting a losing battle. It's just a matter of time before they become revealed as, fakers and fraudulent thinkers. All right, so that's the first thing. Now, because human beings come up with these different symbols and these numbers and these letters, it doesn't mean that it's a bad thing. The only things that we can actually consider to be wrong or bad are things that work against our human interest. And all things which attempt to exalt one person or one group or one ethnicity or one region or one geography or one so-called race, any ideology that seeks to exalt one above others is false. Absolutely false. So whether it's the Jewish community and the Jewish rabbis and the thinkers over there who say that God chose them as his favorite people, and everybody else will just work to be the servants of those chosen people. And this is what many, many people of the Jewish faith believe about their religion, that they are actually chosen by God, handpicked by God, as though they were, grapes or tomatoes that were ripened and ready, ready for the world. And so the Christians come behind the Jewish community, and they were sold the same ideology, but just with a slight twist. And the twist is that they themselves as Christians, they're kind of chosen by God, but they have to do A, B, and C to stay in that chosen group. Whereas the Jews don't have to do anything but be born Jewish, whatever that means. And it doesn't matter how evil they are. It doesn't matter how many bad things they do. It doesn't even matter if they excuse themselves from God and say, I don't want to believe in you. I want to believe in money. I want to believe in power. It doesn't matter as long as they are physically born from a Jewish mother. They consider themselves to still be chosen people. Now, I say, we need to figure that one out because it doesn't sound right to me. So again, the Christians adopted a similar attitude, but they applied the chosenness to Jesus, the prophet. And they said that although we are born sinners as humans, there's one of us who's not born sinner. He's born actually to be the Son of God. And he's called Jesus or Jesus. We say Isa, but we know Isa is not in that picture that says that he's the Son of God. Right? So the Christians have that issue where Jesus is chosen. The Jews say they are chosen. The Christians say Jesus is chosen. And then the Muslims come along and they make the same mistake. After Allah had delivered the Quran as a pure and perfect book of wisdom and instructions, hudan, guidance, there were Muslim leaders who wanted to occupy positions of power and authority and wealth. And they found out that the quickest way to be able to do that is to consider themselves to be above all of the other people of the world as Muslims. So Muslims became the new Jews. Now, I've never heard anybody put it that way. Allah just sent me that message that the Muslims became the new Jews. And then we became the chosen people of God. Right?
Yeah.
Doesn't matter how good the rest of the world is. If you don't say La ilaha illallah Muhammadan Rasulullah, you are not in that chosen group of people. I don't care how good you've been. You're going to die a disbeliever, kafir, and you're going to burn in Jahannam forever.
Yeah.
No matter how good you've been to your mommy, Aisha, it doesn't matter how many good things you did for your daddy. Doesn't matter how much charity you gave in the community, you're going to die an awful death. Well, you won't die an awful death, but on the other side of the death, when you come back to life in the judgment, you are doomed to hell. And that's what Muslims teach and believe on the most part. Now, not all Christians believe what I said Christians believe. Not all Jews believe that they are chosen people, and nobody else is being favored by God. Or they're not, they're just a few Muslims who don't believe that they are the chosen people of Allah and that you have to get into Jannah on your own merit. As the Quran says, you don't go to Jannah from just believing something. You go to Jannah based on your works, your amal, your actions. الذين آمنوا, yes, وعملوا الصالحات. Those who have faith, yes, and do deeds that are good and righteous and reconciling. See, they're not even just regular deeds. They are deeds that serve to reconcile those things that Allah has ordered to be joined together, like the man and the woman. Allah ordered that union. Like human beings, Allah put us all on the same planet. And we interchange with each other, and we interchange goods and services, and we learn each other's languages, and we support each other's interests. If there are poor people on the other side of the planet, we never met them. They're not of our particular ethnic group or anything like that. They don't even speak our language. If we were to meet those poor people right now, we couldn't even speak to them in regular whatever language we each speak. But there is a way that Allah designed for us to speak to them that is universal, and that is the language of kindness.
Yeah.
See, Allah calls it ma'ruf. You get it? Excellent behavior, high standards of behavior. That's the universal language. Everybody's looking for this universal alphabet. Oh, what's the universal language that humans used to speak a long time ago before the Tower of Babel or Babel or whatever they call it in the Bible? Oh, we got to learn to speak that language again. Yeah, we do. But the language is kindness, consideration, empathy, compassion, mercy. That's the first language. How do we know? Because that's how every human baby is born. Psychically, in their psyche, that's how they're born, to be compassionate, to show that they are helpless without a higher power or authority around them assisting them. So Allah, He lets us be born with a conditioning, a preconditioning to eventually accept Him on the conscious level. But He doesn't make us conscious of it when we're born. He makes us conscious of our Lord being our parents. Rabbayani, those two guys, right? The guy and girl. He makes us conscious of them being our gods, because they're responsible for everything that we need to do. We couldn't get into the next room unless one of them came and picked us up and put us in the crib, or fed us we couldn't feed ourselves when we were born. So in fact, what we are calling God now, the one that we all are dependent upon, Allah did not allow any infant to be born recognizing that consciously. Now I'm saying something deep in a minute, if I haven't said anything deep already, and I have. We become conscious of Allah later. So then what is Allah? In fact, Allah is a level of supreme consciousness. And guess what? If you don't come into that consciousness, that's what's called a hell.
Oh, yeah.
This Jahannam everybody's talking about, the word Jahannam actually means stagnation. It doesn't mean burning in a physical fire. That fire is right here, right now, all of the time, around us, waiting for us to become stagnant.
Yeah.
And becoming stagnant, Ayesha, is our choice. It's not Allah's choice. It's our choice. Allah gave us all of the mechanics. He gave us all of the whatever we need to advance along that as-sirat al-mustaqim. Everything we need, psychologically, intellectually, emotionally, instinctively. He gave us an aura. He gave us a torus field of energies. He gave us, vibrations and everything we need outside and inside to make this advancement towards him. And he did it so that it could become a relatively easy journey. But we got to put some muscle into it. With the difficulty, there's ease. Right?
Yeah.
There was difficulty being born. Cooped up in the belly of our mothers for 8, 9, 10 months, almost 10 months, going on 10 months. And then all of a sudden we're in this little package, this little belly, and with all this fluid around us. Can't talk, can't walk, can't even stretch. But then we're born, and the first thing the baby wants to do is stretch.
Yeah.
He just wants to stretch and let that blood flow through the veins and the arteries and all of that, and kick and scream. And who's messing with me? Who disturbed my peace is really what the baby is asking.
Yeah.
And the answer is Allah disturbed your peace so that he could graduate you into another higher peace.
Yeah.
All right. But you got to meet the challenge. Now, let's moonwalk a few steps back to where we were when we began. Language, phrases, insights, wisdom, what do they mean? Why do we even carry a name? What is this urge in the human nature to name people, places, and things? Because the name is what identifies you. And it makes it a lot easier for you to carry the burden that life is going to surely present to you. But if you don't know what you're looking at, what you're talking to, who you're talking to, what you're talking about, because there are no labels, there are no names, there is no system for identifying things, we're going to be lost as the animals would be if they had intellects. But they didn't need intellects because they label things through the use of their instincts. So they know based on a thing's behavior in nature that they're supposed to go towards it or stay away from it or eat it or chase it or run away from it. That's not their intellect that's doing that. They don't have a fully formed intellect like the humans have. They have instinctive drives that register first on the nervous system of that creature. And when their nerves start to act up, oh boy. And that's all the Sephiroth actually is. It's just the 10 basic connections in your nervous system.
Yeah.
All right. So, and I'm trying not to be all over the place, but I know from your email that you can meet that challenge because I see you as being a very special thinker. I don't know what other people have told you about you. I'm meeting you for the first time, so to speak, on a Zoom. But I'm telling you, there's a wellspring in you that just needs to be tapped. And those same springs, those 12 springs that came out of the rock when the prophet Musa hit it with his staff, that same spring, I see it about to make progress inside of you. I've experienced it. If you understand what rock means, if you understand what water means, that kind of thing. If you understand what the staff means, the staff is just a symbolic way of indicating what your spine does, your spinal cord and your spine does, that bone going from the
Yeah.
brain, the bottom brain, all the way down to the lower
Mm-hmm.
part of the chest or the torso, right? That's all it is.
Mm-hmm.
So if you learn how to use that in order to tap the stone or the rock, and what is the stone? The stone is the sacred tone. You see how they put this English language together?
Yep.
Yeah, just separate the S from the T-O-N-E and know that
Mm-hmm.
most of the time these letters like S are in the beginning of a word. It stands for something like the word stone, sacred tone, like the word sword, S-W-O-R-D, sacred word.
Mm-hmm.
So if I defeat somebody with my sword, it may have nothing to do with a physical fight and
Yeah.
everything to do with fighting with the sacred word. For us as
Frequent.
Muslims, that would be the Quran. Yes, go right ahead.
Mm-hmm. No, I was just saying frequency. The sound is frequency.
Yes,
Frequency, energy, vibration.
yes, indeed. And see,
Mm-hmm.
when they call us a person, an individual person, these are important words in the English language. You're in Pakistan, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So these are important words in the Western world, Europe and America, who pretty much invented the English language, along
Mm-hmm.
with some very sophisticated thinkers amongst the Jewish scholars. But
Mm-hmm.
the contribution that they have not yet publicly recognized is the contribution from the early Muslim thinkers on language. When the Muslim
Mm-hmm.
Moors came out of Africa, came out of Arabia, and went
Mm-hmm.
into Andalusia, that's now called Spain, and
Yeah.
ended up creating the European Renaissance, right? Beginning in Italy and France and all of those other very popular countries in Europe, it was Muslim thinkers who established that level of science
Yeah.
and technology, all right?
Mm-hmm.
That's what they don't tell you. That's what my system, that's called the Nunetics, is
Mm-hmm.
designed to resurrect and bring it back so that not only Muslims can see it and still benefit from it, but so that the entire world can appreciate it, because the Quran and its particular flavor of language called Arabic or Arabia, it is not colloquial. It is
Mm-hmm.
universal.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not talking about modern standard Arabic. I'm talking about Quranic Arabic. There's a difference.
Yep.
Modern standard Arabic has been influenced by many languages,
Mm-hmm.
Syriac, Hebrew, and many languages that have been responsible for influencing that Arabic. But Quranic Arabia has been influenced only by Allah's fitrah.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Yeah.
a beautiful thing. What do we
Yep.
mean for people who might not understand the term fitrah, al-fitrah?
Mm-hmm.
Explain to me from your understanding, what is al-fitrah?
I think anything like what organic world, what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has designed, and it's in nature, like the child is born on the al-fitra, and that's that inner voice, and then you come out with the canceling out those vowels and coming with the root letters. So to me, that's the inner voice that keeps bothering me. Also, when anything goes against the al-fitra, that inner voice, this is not right. Those moral values, those ethical values. So that's how I take al-fitra.
That's
So
perfect.
anything that's going against the nature, we
Yes,
have to take a step back, and maybe the norms made by the people can be wrong.
yes. And that's a perfect explanation. I'm just going to add one thing to it.
Mhm.
And that is that al-fitrah represents how Allah designed the entire universe based on pattern recognition.
Yeah, patronology.
Yeah. Oh, you got that. Oh, that was a while ago that I taught that. Yeah. But that's what it's based on. It's based on patternology, or the knowledge of what patterns represent. Now you're getting back to why the Sephiroth has its particular shape. because those shapes mean something. The
Mm-hmm.
5-pointed star versus the 6-pointed star, they all have meanings, but those meanings have been ascribed to those things by humans. The patterns that
Mm-hmm.
Allah creates in nature have been ascribed their meanings by the source creator, by Allah himself. So
Mm-hmm.
I want to keep making that differentiation that there's
Mm-hmm.
man's creation, small c, and then there is Allah's creation, capital C.
Yeah.
Okay. So that was a great explanation. I might transcribe that and put that in my next book. I'll credit you. Yeah.
Mhm.
Go ahead.
Actually, these are the patterns that, it keeps knocking whatever that inside mind is or brain is. And it's just whether you follow the people, the whole crowd, or you take the less road travel.
Less traveled road.
Like
That's
my
right.
whole life is like that. I'm a rebellious person, and if I know this is the truth, even I am standing alone, it's fine.
Yeah. See,
Like
there's
it
nothing
shouldn't be.
wrong. Nothing wrong, Aisha, with being a rebel. I know it's a bad
Mhm.
word in our minds because that's how people who want to keep us sheeple,
Yeah.
they want
Hmm.
us to be non-rebellious. But Allah put something in our very nervous system that makes us rebellious against anything that disrespects his oneness,
Hmm.
disrespects his decree.
Yeah.
See, now I'm going to get into a little bit of consonantal connections, what I call consonantal connections, right?
Hmm.
And consonantal connection simply means that there are certain consonants that can be interchanged with other consonants.
Hmm.
And I don't know if you've gotten that far in my videos to understand that principle, but the point is that there are 7 areas of articulation in the human mouth.
Hmm.
No matter how many letters you've invented for your alphabet,
Hmm.
there are only 7 parts of the mouth that can articulate any of those letters you invent or any of those
Hmm.
sounds that you invent. Okay. And no matter where you are in the world, those sounds are going to be pretty much the same. So
Hmm.
you speak Urdu? What are you speaking?
Yeah, Urdu.
Yeah, Urdu. Yeah. Um, give me a word in Urdu that has a K sound in it. Give me any word.
Uh, Kamal.
Ahmad. Yeah. Yeah.
Hmm.
Beautiful word. Um, now I'm going to give you one. Well, I'm going to ask you, give me an English word in English that begins with a K.
Kite.
Say it again.
Kite.
Kite, like the kind you fly,
Yeah.
right? Okay. Now, does the sound of the K in Kamal, is it any different than the sound of the K in kite?
No.
No. You have to go to the
Mm-hmm.
same part of the mouth, which is in the throat, right?
Mm-hmm.
To pronounce
Yeah.
both.
Yeah.
And if I didn't give you the word itself, you could only identify the sound, which is called a
Sound.
phoneme,
Mm.
the sound, and the other thing you can identify is where the sound is coming from in your mouth. And whether you're speaking Urdu or German or French or Kiswahili or whatever, that same K sound is going to be coming from the throat, more towards the
Mm-hmm.
back of the throat. Ka, ka, ka. You can feel it if you touch it though. Ka,
Kite.
ka,
Kite.
right?
Kite.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then there are some other letters that are also pronounced from the throat. Some of them from the front of the throat, like ha, the H sound. Ha, hayya ala salat. That H, it's also from the front of the throat. And also the twin brother of calf, which is off, the Q
Off.
sound, right?
Mm-hmm.
Those are called gutturals because they're coming from the gutter of the throat towards the back of the throat mostly.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So all of those letters, and those letters could be numerous. They could be, 5, 6, 7 different letters in the alphabet, but all of them are gutturals, and they all come from that one compartment of
Hmm.
pronunciation. So that one compartment represents one of only 7 that the human mouth can actually pronounce.
Yeah.
So you have your gutturals, you have a section called liquids. Are you familiar with that one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Alanam or LR.
Yes. LNR. Yes. Lam
Electromagnetic.
Ra. Yeah. Oh, you've been studying. Okay. So yeah, those two are in the same part of the mouth because the tongue has to go up to the roof of the mouth in order to pronounce both of those sounds. Whether you're talking about ra, which the tongue has to, it goes up there to the roof, but it chills.
There's this vibration.
Yes. No, now you're talking. And the lamb does what when it goes up there?
Magnetic, it touches.
Yes,
Mhm.
it magnetizes, right? So the letters lam and ra in the mouth represent magnetism and electricity.
Mhm. Yep.
This is how the beginnings of these sciences become
Mm.
popularized because humans a long, long, long time ago, before the 55-inch television was invented,
Mm.
uh, that human being in history was paying attention to the fitra around him
Mm.
and the fitra inside of him.
Yep.
He was paying attention to when he heard something, how it registered on his nervous system. Did it
Mm.
make him scared, like the lightning bolt, the thunderbolt, and the lightning shooting across the sky? That created a fear in the primitive mind of people of old. He didn't know what that was. That's why we started inventing gods,
Mhm.
because the primal people of long ago, thousands of years ago, they were just like newborn infants, even though they were grown people, but they had
Mm.
not been exposed to ilm
Mhm.
through revelation, through the
Yep.
coming of the prophets with revelation. They had not been exposed to that yet.
Mhm.
So their only exposure was to their own imaginations. And all of these
Mhm.
things happening in the environment that they couldn't understand, floods, snowstorms, rainstorms, hail, these kinds of things. They didn't know where that
Mhm.
was coming from. So for each one of them, they had to say a different God was in charge of that. And then they would
Mhm.
pray to that God to not let it rain and wipe out their crops, or to let it rain, because the sun was also a God, the biggest God, as it says in the Quran, in the story of Ibrahim. Hada
Mhm.
al-Akbar. You're looking at the sun. He said, Hada al-Akbar. This is the
Mhm.
greater, right?
Mhm.
So these things became gods in the minds of these people. So we don't look at those people and say they were evil because they were worshiping all of these different manifestations of nature, is really what they were worshiping. It was nature worship.
Mhm.
Just like in the infancy of any child, there's parent worship.
Yeah.
Hmm? Mommy and daddy worship, and then uncle, we start liking uncle when he comes over. He's always leaving us toys and money or whatever. So then
Mhm.
uncle becomes an attraction,
Yeah.
right? But this is
Mhm.
Allah's way of incrementally growing up humanity towards his purpose.
Mhm.
And it does not hurt Allah that you don't recognize him immediately.
Mhm.
It doesn't hurt Allah that he sends you his signs, his instructions, and you turn a blind eye to it and say, I don't want to know about that. No one God. I want to continue worshiping all of my 360 gods.
Mhm.
They're the ones who are feeding me, and they're the ones who are protecting me against the enemy tribe and all of that. And that's the decision that humans make. And when the human being says, I don't want the one God, even though it's clear that everything is operating upon a system of Tawheed, and then Allah sends revelation to prove it, if you would only think, if you would only use
Mhm.
your aql, you figure it out, because he gives you so many signs and indications that these are not all different things. These are all part of one thing.
Mhm.
Again, tracing back to Tawheed.
Yeah.
right? Yeah. So, but Allah's not angry. He's not upset. He's not jealous because you don't recognize him. And for
Mm-hmm.
one good reason, he don't need us.
Yeah.
He's totally independent. And he says if we get too far out of line, he'll wipe all of us out and create a whole new humanity.
Mm-hmm.
And then he says that is easy for Allah.
Good.
How beautiful is that?
Mm-hmm.
So we, including the Muslims, have walked away with the incorrect idea about who the source creator actually is and does.
Mm-hmm.
He's not an Arab.
Mm-hmm.
He's not what we used to say when we used to say the black man is God. That happened here in America, in the
Mm-hmm.
Nation of Islam. The black man is God, and the white man is the devil. No,
Mm-hmm.
no. Allah has to come behind that in the Quran and say he neither sleeps nor slumbers. He never
Mm-hmm.
dies. He was neither born nor will he become an old man walking on a cane, as you see in some mythologies.
Yeah.
No, Allah is not a myth. He is
Mm-hmm.
El-Haq. He is
Mm-hmm.
the primo reality. Whatever you think is real, Allah, he supersedes that. Right? All right. Now, let me go back to the word you used called frequency.
Mm-hmm.
Frequency is from a smaller word in English called frequent.
Yeah.
And frequent has two meanings that are actually the same meaning when you look at them. The first meaning is that it happens over and over again,
Mm-hmm.
what we call frequently.
Mm-hmm.
She visits me frequently.
Mm-hmm.
But the other meaning is to visit. Well, that's actually, see, that's what I mean by it's the same meaning. Because I could say he frequents the local bar every night
Mm-hmm.
after work and he gets drunk as a skunk and he goes home and his wife can't stand him when he's drunk. But he's only
Mm-hmm.
drunk because every day when he leaves work, he frequents the local bar. That means he visits the local bar. So it's the
Mm-hmm.
same thing with the idea of frequency.
Mm-hmm.
Frequencies visit you.
Yeah.
And the beautiful thing about a frequency visiting you is that it visits you upon your request and invitation.
Mm-hmm.
Now we're getting to a more important thing that you mentioned in your email. See,
Mm-hmm.
how do we manipulate, in the good sense, these frequencies? Because here's the other thing about nature that people don't understand. If you do not consciously command things in nature,
Mm-hmm.
those things in nature then become responsible for commanding you.
Yeah.
You got that?
Mm-hmm.
If you do not take conscious control of your own innate frequencies, then your own innate frequencies by default, Ayesha, will begin to tell you what to do because you refuse to use them in order to tell others what to do. Your
Yeah.
frequencies can keep enemies away from you. Your
Mm-hmm.
frequencies can solve any issue you're having in your family or your community. Your frequencies can do that if you know how to manipulate frequencies. Your frequencies can change the course of a negative conversation and force it into a positive course. You know, in the Quran, Allah says that there are points in the history of a person where Allah can take your most egregious enemies and make them your ardent friends. He can take your
Mm-hmm.
worst foes and make them your best friends. That's
Mm-hmm.
frequency manipulation. Now, would Allah say that to you in the Quran and then not put in the Quran how to do it? No. The Quran is a complete book, but you got to be able to study hard to find
Mm-hmm.
those secrets in the Quran. And I'm not talking about Sufi secrets. I'm not talking about people who sit in a mountain or in the mouth of a cave and meditate, for 30 days straight and fast. And I'm not talking about those kinds of people. I'm not talking about the people who sit in the middle of the, Sahara desert or something and do yoga and, and go into other realms and, and their eyes go up in their head and all that. And then they come back with a message that nobody can understand. That's not what I mean by frequencies. Those are frequencies, all right, but they are not the kind of frequencies that I'm discussing with you right now. You are in charge of what frequencies visit you often. You are in charge. If a frequency visits you often, it's going to dominate you if you don't know how to take control of it. That's how people become Majnun, because they don't know how to regulate or modulate the frequencies that are visiting them often. That's what a frequency does. Happiness visits us often, or at least it used to when we were children.
Yeah.
Now we become adults and sadness and misery is visiting us often. We call it depression. We call it psychosis. We call it, the inability to control our appetites, and we overeat and we overthink and we do everything over frequently, because these are frequencies, my dear.
Yeah.
And they become disturbing because we are not taking control. Allah says that He created us as al-Khaliqeen, the creators. But He says that He is Ahsanul Khaliqeen. He is the most excellent of creators. He is the best of creators. But He never said we weren't creators. We're creating all of the time. And Allah said concerning Adam that all of the other creations were to make sajda to him. It didn't say to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It said to Adam. There must be something about us making sajda to Adam that equals making sajda to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Remember, Allah doesn't need us.
Yeah.
Other humans and other creations need us. But Allah has no need for us. He's happy when you're happy.
Yeah.
But you got to be happy about the right thing. That's all, right? So He said, make sajda to Adam, and Iblis was the only dropout from that class. He said, I don't want to graduate from that class. I'm better than that guy. So arrogance took a hold in the mind of Iblis, right? Believing he was better than. So you can point to any ideology existing on planet Earth as we speak, whether you're talking about racism, chauvinism, sexism, classism, when people who have more money think they're better than people who don't have money, that kind of thing. All of what are called the isms, ISMS. You see ism at the end of a lot of words in English.
Yeah, the Arabic word.
Yes. They got it from the Arabic language, ism. Bi ism Allah. Bi ismi Allah. Bismillah.
Yeah, Bismillah.
And they translate it as name, right? But it doesn't mean name like we have names, Benjamin, Ayesha, Philip, Barbara. It doesn't mean name like that. A name simply indicates your identity, what you are as an essence in the world.
Yeah.
So therefore, what you call yourself is important in that regard, because what you're calling yourself, even though it's a name from a language dictionary somewhere from Argentina or, Peru or somewhere, it's a name that's in their language. But that name, because there are sounds that make up that name, those names are frequencies. And it's the frequency of the name that's registering in your nervous system as having a specific meaning. Are we getting somewhere now?
Yep.
I'm giving you the graduate level crash course right now. You're not a beginner, so I'm not going to treat you like a beginner.
Okay.
Okay. So when we say Bismi Allah, Bismillah, the Tasmiyah, they call it different things, the Basmala. When
Yeah.
we say it, we are actually indicating the identity. We're saying that we begin with the identity of the one called Allah. That means that we have to consciously recognize and acknowledge who, what is Allah. That happens right here in the intellect. When we learn to consciously acknowledge who and what Allah is, and have that as a focus of our attention, then whatever you give your attention to, what happens?
We give our energy to it. Expand it.
There you go.
Doing that.
It expands. So if we want Allah to expand in our psychic makeup, if we want Allah to expand in our estimation of who He is, if we want Allah to expand so that He can always be the support that we need going forward, and no matter who or what we have to deal with in this world, how can Allah's expansion be overshadowed by anything else in creation? He's the creator of creation, so He can handle any situation that's thrown at us. So therefore, that's going to lessen and alleviate eventually all fear. Allah talks about that in the Quran. He said, on them shall be no fear, nor shall they grieve. Why would I grieve when my big brother is here to fight my battles? You know, you go into the play yard in the elementary school and some bully is messing with you, and your big brother just stepped into the yard. Oh, all of the fear that I had is the, oh man, oh no, my big brother, you wait till my big brother gets here. He's fighting my battles. Well, if you believe that about Allah, that He can fight your little battles, then why would you fear? And why would you grieve? Grieve means you lost something that you care about. My mother passed, okay, I'm going to grieve, because I lost some. But what are you going to lose when Allah's got you? If you're fighting 12 rounds with the bully, you're going to win all 12. Maybe you lose one on purpose, just to learn the lesson of losing, and then come back and whip him in the last round, right? All right, so the word frequency, that English word, is from the Quranic Arabic word, and I think you know this already. There's a word in the Quran that if we look at, yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Which 3 letters are the same?
FRQ?
Yes. Furqan. The last part of the word Furqan is a suffix. It's not a part of the original word. The original verb is faraqa. So we're just dealing with the F, the fa, the ra, R, and the qaf, the Q. And you see the same thing in the word frequency. F, R, E,
R, Q.
Q, yeah. And the rest of frequency, U, E, N, C, I, Y, that's a suffix. So we have to first learn how to identify what are called affixes in words. A-F-F-I-X-E-S, affixes. That means any additional part of the word that's added after the root word has been established. Okay? That's very important for people who are studying the system of numetics. To first look at any word. I used the word reconciliation earlier. In talking about as-salihat. So if you take I'm going to let you do this. Take the English word reconciliation and show me where the affixes are.
So re is the prefix, the tion is suffix. So you're left with conciliate, CONCILIA.
Yes.
So leaving out the vowel C and C L. C N and L.
Okay, I'm going to give you a little bit of help and you'll figure it out after I tell you this.
Okay.
That there are only 3 affixes in language. Prefix, you mentioned suffix.
Suffix, prefix.
But there's one that most teachers of the language don't tell you or don't know to tell you. There are also something called the infixes.
Yes.
So they are prefixes, there are
Mm-hmm.
infixes, and then there are suffixes. So let's go back to the word reconciliation. And
So recon and shun. RECON and TION.
okay, what is each part of those? See, what we're doing now, we're trying to whittle the word down to get to the base level of the word. There's a
Mm-hmm.
base word in there, okay? So if re is a prefix, we can take that off,
Mm-hmm.
because what does re mean in that regard?
Again and
Yeah,
again.
to do it over and over again. So we don't need that. That's like
Mm-hmm.
that's an
Mm-hmm.
unnecessary prefix. We don't need that prefix to understand the word. We want the
Mm-hmm.
base meaning for the word. So take away the re, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And then you have
Then
the
the con.
con, the other con,
Yes.
okay?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
With.
Yes, con means with.
And then Cilia. CILIA.
Yeah. Cilia,
Mm-hmm.
cilia,
And
right?
mm-hmm.
Okay. Then,
And then the last one, the suffix shun, TION.
okay, now let me let you in on a secret of the English language. That
Mm-hmm.
T is not a part of the
Is the
suffix.
feminine?
The
Oh,
T, the T usually comes towards the end of these English words, but it's not a suffix.
okay. Okay.
The T does in the English language, most of the time, it's at the end of a word, like
Mm-hmm.
intellectual or intellect even. Any of these
Mm-hmm.
words that end with a T,
Mm-hmm.
that T is doing exactly the same thing as the ta marbuta in Arabic.
Okay, so making it feminine.
That's right. It makes that
Mm-hmm.
entity feminine, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And what does it mean to make a word feminine? What happens with that word when it becomes feminine?
It's like something is entering into it, the masculine feminine principle.
Yes. Give me a little more on that. Explain that.
I
How is
see.
it influenced? I'll let you just go ahead and talk.
Okay, I see it as a, mm, the form and function thing, like we studied in architecture. So there is this facade, the
Yes,
outer body. So that is something like masculine principle that is protecting, but there is something inside that building, now that architectural plans, the wall stuff. So that facade is saving that inside thing.
that
So
is
it's
great.
like
You
that
have great
earth,
explanations.
the feminine, that female thing that is nurturing, and at the same time, that male, the masculine principle is, saving it from the outer harshment. So I see it that way. I'm connecting
Yes,
it with architecture, what we study.
this is beautiful. I might have 7 classes a week with you. That was the best explanation of the Tad Marbuta that I've ever
Mhm.
heard, even from a
I,
book.
I always used to think that Tamar Bhuta, it's like it's encapsulating something inside it
Yes, it
when
is.
you draw it, something
Yes, the
like that.
symbol itself. Yeah. And Marbuta is from Rabata, which means to tie, just like the umbilical cord is
Yeah,
tied
that.
to the mother inside,
Mm-hmm.
in the womb, right? So it's that thing that is tied to another thing. And the purpose that it's tied is so that it can experience exponential growth. I'm giving you another nugget right now, Aisha. When
Mm-hmm.
you see this Tam Marbuta operating in the Quran, the words that Tam Marbuta are tied to, the thing it's tied to can experience exponential growth. So
Mm-hmm.
if I use the word rahma and then I put the ta marbuta at the end, rahmatullahi. See what's coming after that, not just
Mm-hmm.
the so-called mercy, but the mercy that's tied to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That mercy is not ordinary mercy.
Mm-hmm.
That mercy is a mercy that is experiencing exponential, unlimited growth, just like the growth in the womb, which is called rahm, from the same root as rahma. and
Yeah.
Ar-Rahman, right? So
Ar-Rahman, Ar-Rahim,
yeah,
and
yeah.
Oh.
So that life in the womb, look at how exponential it is in its growth from a single cell, min nafsin
Yeah.
wahida,
Mm-hmm.
to the zygote, to the, all the clinging clot, all of the things that Allah tells us about in the Quran. And then it's born into a world as a new and exciting but unexplored life form. We don't know what this
Mm-hmm.
baby's going to be.
Mm-hmm.
We have high hopes that it's not going to be a criminal, but who only Allah knows. And that's why we have to stay connected to Allah.
Mm-hmm.
Because if we stay connected to Allah consciously, not just unconsciously, yeah, I believe in Allah, I believe in God, la ilaha illallah, Muhammad Rasulullah, blah, 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 blah. And that's all that's registering in our minds. That's no real attention that's being paid to Allah because we're not consciously exploring what Allah tells us about himself and about us.
Mm-hmm.
He says he put ayat all in the skies, right? As-samawat, ayat in the earth, fil ard, and similar ayat in us.
Inside
In
us.
us, yes. He said, but most people don't pay it any attention. So if you're not paying it any attention, it's not going to expand. If you don't put
Yeah.
yeast in the bread as you're putting it in the oven, you don't put any yeast, the bread is not going to rise.
Mm-hmm.
You'll have some flat dough, some nasty tasting stuff that you think is bread, and it's not going to be what it is you expected for it to be.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? So this is how we should be understanding ourselves in relation to Allah. We have to approach belief or faith in Allah consciously
Mm-hmm.
in order for Allah to benefit us. Give you further proof. You're standing in front of a 20-story window in the projects or wherever you happen to be, a window that you can open and close, but you live on
Mm-hmm.
the 20th floor or you're visiting someone on the 20th floor. And all of a sudden, you feel so down, you feel so depressed about something you think you did to yourself or somebody else or something you said to your grandmothers. And you've done that so often that you just feel so pitifully bad that you
Mm-hmm.
say, I'm going to end it all. I don't want to live anymore. Now, that's not
Mm-hmm.
Allah speaking to you.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the whispers of Ash-Shaytani Rajim speaking to you. And
Mm-hmm.
he can speak to you in your voice.
Yeah, there's
Ah,
some voice in mind when you study the categories of mind. This non-stop chattering box,
chattering.
the
That's right. They call it chatter, right?
the
Yeah.
ego, the
Yeah.
emotions,
And look
stuck
at
in a
what,
past, stuck
yeah.
in a future.
Yes. And look at what the word chatter is consonantally connected to. It's connected to the word shatter. So
Yeah.
the more you allow that chatter to happen in your mind,
Mm-hmm.
as it continues to create chatter, it's actually also creating a shattering process in your nervous system and in the intellect. And pretty
Mm-hmm.
soon, that shattering, that breaking to pieces of things, Allah speaks about it in many different places in the Quran. We'll talk about that in some other class at some other time. That
Mm-hmm.
shattering means that something that Allah created to operate holistically has been no longer allowed to operate as one thing.
Yeah, that is shattered. That frequency is disturbed. That was supposed to keep us in that al-fitra level.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the beautiful thing, Aisha, is that Allah has given all of us as individuals the capacity to fix the shatter,
Yeah.
to repair the glass, because it's just your nervous system is just a glass. You tap on it too hard, it'll
Mm-hmm.
shatter. Say the
Mm-hmm.
wrong thing in the wrong tone of voice, and people fall apart. They call it, right? Why are you
Mm-hmm.
falling apart on me? I don't think what I said was, yeah, but you weren't on the other end of the tapping. You came with a sledgehammer and hit me in the back. And so my spine is all broken. My nervous system is just shook up, all shook up. I don't think I'll ever be the same again. The spine is practically, yeah, outside of the skull. The spine is practically the only bone in the body that if you break it, it's over for you.
Yeah. We're like horizontal animals without a spine.
Yes. The spine is what makes you upright. And what's the letter in the fictional Arabic system for the spine?
For Aleph?
Yes, ma'am. Aleph. Upright. It can bend, just like we can bend over and pick up a package or pick up our grandchild or whatever, your child. It can bend, but it can't stay like that. That becomes a problem. You see a lot of older people who, they have a bone disease or whatever, and they can't stand straight anymore. They have to walk like this, bent over for the rest of their lives. They're 80, 90 years old. They can't stand up straight anymore. So therefore, it's hard for them to see. It's hard for them to look behind them. We're talking psychology now.
Yep.
People who refuse to live an upright life cannot see what's behind them. Because if they knew what was coming behind them, they'd straighten their asses up. Excuse the expression. They'd straighten up. Say, oh, all of the bad things I did, this is what's coming after me. Oh my goodness, I better walk straight from this. I better force myself into an upright position. It's all psychology. That's what the Quran is. It's a book of psychology, communicating to us on the human level through symbols that are abstract. The symbols are concrete, pictures of things that Allah is painting for us, but they indicate abstract ideas so that the average human being can grasp it. I might not be able to grasp what's going on in the chemical laboratory. I might not be able to tell you what the chemical composition of water is as, H2O. I've heard it before, but Allah has a way of putting those complicated concepts into physical pictures that if you study the picture that he's pointing to, you'll eventually be able to figure out the concept. And that's what Nunetics is. It's giving you physical pictures of letters that represent parts of your human body. And all you have to do now, and teach to your children and grandchildren and students in school and whoever, is get them to just study the object that the letter represents.
Yeah.
So if it's the spine, you got to study what the spine is. You have to study what the spine does. You have to study what can interfere with the performance of the spine, and then apply it to the letter that Allah applies to the word that occupies that letter in the Quran. So if the word is iman, amana, and amana begins with an alif, then whatever amana means, he believed, he had faith, or he had trust, or whatever. If you don't know anything else, you know that to have faith, to have belief, and to have trust means that you first have to begin as an upright person. A person standing on your own 2 feet, making your own decisions, not just following the crowd, following the herd, saying something because you heard it on YouTube or on TikTok or whatever, repeating things that you don't know what it means, but you don't know that you're cursing out your mother when you say this particular thing. You understand? Because we're not thinking, we're reacting like cattle.
Yep.
But if you have a spine in your back, because you are now a person of Iman, then that means that you're standing on your own 2 feet. And those 2 feet represent your moral and rational ability to think. Not necessarily your emotional ability. That's a different letter. That's meme. Water. Emotions. It's in there.
Yep.
But it's not priority. It's Alif, Meme, Nun. It's in the middle. It's the balancing point in trust. See, once you decide to become upright, then you can develop an emotional relationship with another person or another idea or another place. You first have to enter as an upright, innocent person. Make sense?
Yep.
Now, you asked me, how can we choose one goal out of all of the goals that we have, because we're being bombarded in this lifetime with things we can do and want to do and never had a chance to do, trying to make time to do. And there are just so many things. I mean, I can sit right here and tell you about 10 things that I'd like to do before I die. How do I prioritize? The keys to many of these issues are built into the words, even in the English language. Now, a lot of Muslims don't know that one of the words in the Quran that also indicates purpose is the word or the phrase al-haq that I mentioned earlier. We've been told that it means the truth, but it also means the purpose. Because the purpose is the truth. That's your purpose, to live truth. The way you know that's your purpose is when you start living a lie, you know it immediately. It bothers you. You standing, you lied in that person's face about giving that money back on Tuesday. And as you were telling the lie, you knew you weren't going to have the money on Tuesday. You might have it Thursday or next Wednesday after that. But something in your nervous system says, your nervous system starts to quiver a little bit, because the truth, the principle of truth has been violated. And it's the truth that represented the purpose of that particular statement or that relationship that you have. You were engaging with someone, trying to be honest about what your needs are and what you could do, but the fear of not being able to fulfill that deal, that commitment, that covenant, the fear of that is what causes our spine to go into a miniature kind of quiver. If we were on a lie detector test when we told that lie, the needle would have quivered, right? On the machine. What is your name? Benjamin. Oh, no, line just going. How old are you? I'm 64. I'll be 65 in July. You know, okay. When are you going to return that money? Oh, I'm going to do that next Wednesday. The machine stuck.
Exactly.
You understand?
I guess we don't think spiritually. It seems like we have two vessels. Maybe physical is linked with the mental, and the spiritual part is linked with our emotional. Like if you, at least if when I used to lie, so it was something I was having this baggage on me.
Yeah.
And now when I don't, I feel that is removed. It's not there anymore.
Yeah, but let me tell you where that baggage begins. Because we've been taught that spiritual means something that you can't touch, you can't see it. It's like of God and it's the spirit and it's kind of spooky sometimes and all of that. And that's not what spiritual means. I'm going to tell you what spiritual means. You can accept it or leave it alone. Doesn't matter. Spirit simply means influence. What influences you invisibly. So spirit is also operating in your nervous system. It's not out there waiting to come into you as the spirit or that kind of thing. No, the word spirit comes from the word spiral.
Yep.
It's only that which, if you entertain it correctly, it's going to just help you evolve higher and higher. You stick to your spiritual principles. It's just going to help you rise like a spiral does. And if you stop doing the things necessary for your rising, then what will happen is that the opposite of the spiral will happen. You start spiraling downwards.
Descent.
Now, this is in the Quran. لقد خلقنا الإنسان في
Yes,
أحسن
then
تقويم
okay.
ثم رددناه أسفل
Exactly.
سافلين.
Mhm.
Jack and Jill went up the hill to fetch a pail of water. Jack fell
Mhm.
down and broke his crown,
Mhm.
and Jill came tumbling after.
Yeah.
Humpty Dumpty sat on a wall. Humpty
Hmm.
Dumpty had a great fall. It's all speaking to the same thing.
Yep.
Jack and the Beanstalk. All of these nursery rhymes are speaking fitra. And I would even say that most of them, if not all of them, that I've read and studied deeply are also connected to wisdom from the Quran, but the European thinkers, that was too much information for them to pass on to us. Remember, they learned most of this stuff from Muslims in Spain.
Andalusia.
Yeah. All right. They were babbling people over there in Spain, not knowing how to take a bath.
Hmm.
They didn't have any canals, not the canals. They didn't have any apparatus to be able to shower or to take a bath. They didn't have fountains. The Muslims built those things for them.
Hmm.
Irrigation systems that would run through the land and water the fields, and so that they could have these luxurious gardens. They're still there. The gardens are still there in Spain.
Yep.
So they took that technology and they kept it for themselves, but they did not share where they got this technology, where they got this
Mhm.
insight. They didn't share that with the rest of the Europeans over in their continent. So we
Mhm.
began to think that that was their genius that built all of that, when in fact it was people who were in touch with the fitra, people who were in touch with Allah's book, the Quran, that instituted and introduced those things to those Europeans until the
Mhm.
Catholics came along in 1492 and stamped it all out of jealousy.
Hmm.
Okay, so getting back to the word purpose, I like to look at it like this. I like to see the P-U-R in the word purpose the same way I see the P-U-R-R in the sound of the kitten, cat. When the cat goes,
Brr.
yeah,
Hmm.
oh man, you don't get any more rested than that.
Hmm.
You have a cat?
No, I don't have, but it comes in my
Uh,
garage every
oh
night.
yeah, so you
So
know, you
I
know.
have to attend it.
Listen, once you satisfy that cat, you put the
Hmm.
milk and the water in his bowl and the cat food, and he's got no more needs. He will curl up around your feet. And
Yeah.
and his way of showing appreciation is when he purrs. He'll be
Yep.
sleeping, still do.
Hmm.
So that means
Mhm.
he's totally rested. I'm still talking
Yep.
about the word purpose.
Yep. Purr and
You'll know
pause.
your purpose because your mind and your spirit will become totally rested, at rest, at peace. It won't happen just
Mhm.
because you're chasing goals. My goal is to make $100,000 this year. Okay, well that could give you a heart attack. The way you're going about earning that $100,000, that doesn't mean that's your purpose because it's one of your goals.
Mhm.
You have to make that goal singular and unique. In the
Mhm.
same way that Allah is unique on the high level of uniqueness, where nothing
Mhm.
compares with him, you have to find a goal that is singular and unique, that nothing else you want to do compares with. Now, for a person that might be finding a spouse, sometimes when you
Mhm.
find that spouse after you've been alone for a certain amount of time or whatever, and you meet that right person, you just click, like almost as soon as you see them, it's like you've known them for 10 years already.
Mhm.
Okay. Then you have to begin to work on that relationship in a way that creates this purr moment that I'm talking about, when you can be in the same room with each other and you don't even have to say anything and you're just feeling so at peace. That's how I am with
Mhm.
my wife. Sometimes we'll go a,
Mhm.
a half a day. Hard for her to go half a day without saying anything, but
Mhm.
she likes to talk. I like to talk also, but I love moments of the day when I can just be quiet and
Silent.
yeah, be in the
Mhm.
silence and just listen to the sounds outside, or watch my favorite program. Sometimes it'll be a cartoon that I used to watch when I was a child. You know, that'll be my piece. So that's the kind of person you have to know. People might say, well, yeah, you just look for a person like that. All there's 7 billion people on earth. But let me tell you something about frequency. Frequency does 2 things. It attracts, magnetizes, and repels. That's right. It can also repulse, but it repels. Yes. Frequencies can attract or repel. Here's how it's done. I explained it one way earlier. I'm going to explain it a different way now. Whenever you have to leave, let me know, because, you know, I'll talk for the rest of the night. Now we'll go about another 15 minutes or so, inshallah, if you can be with me for that long. We mentioned earlier that the way to pardon me, when you focus on something, when you give it your attention, it expands. The things that you take your attention away from that you maybe should be paying attention to will contract. When the pupil of the eye comes in contact with an over amount of light from the environment, what happens to the pupil?
Expand and contract.
Yeah, but which
like,
one
for
of those?
example, when you come from the sun,
Yeah, which one of those two happens when there's too much sun? Does the pupil expand or does the pupil condense?
I didn't observe it that way, but I just know when I come inside, so it's hard.
Let's go back to what we said. Allah said in the Quran. He says that I have put instructing signs in the skies. I put instructions in the earth, and in you I put similar signs, but most people are not paying attention. So what I want you to do from this day forward, Miss Ayesha Ahmad,
observe.
Pay attention. Consciously, though.
Yeah.
Not just as an awareness, like, oh, okay, I know that's there and I know that's there. No. Awareness and consciousness are 2 different things.
Yeah.
Awareness is what your nature already knows is there, but you don't necessarily know the purpose for it. The infant that is born out of a woman's belly becomes immediately aware that it's in a totally different environment than the womb, but it doesn't know who these people are, not even its mother. It's not conscious yet. It's aware. I'm hungry, but I don't know why. It's aware of its needs. It's hungry, it's thirsty or whatever. It's cold. It needs to be warmed up in the mother's arms or a blanket or something. So it has an awareness, but the entire universe is aware. That's why Allah makes it animate. He said to the universe, come together willingly or unwillingly. And he said, the universe said, we come willingly. That wasn't a conscious reaction. That was an awareness in the universe that Allah created. A lot more to be said on that.
So universe is aware? Universe is not conscious?
The
like,
universe is not, no, I know a lot of people say that about the universe, the conscious universe. The universe is not conscious. Not by my estimation, based on the words that they're choosing. They said the universe is conscious. You know what con means?
With.
So what is chis?
Choice.
Yes. This thing is doing this act with choice, with choosing. It's.
So universe is not choosing, it's not conscious, but it's aware. Like,
that's right.
Allah has programmed it, what it's supposed to do, each and everything.
Yes. The universe has no such choices. If Allah says do this, that's what the universe does. If Allah says stop doing this and do that, that's what the universe has to do. That's why he said that. He said to the angels, make sajda. The angels did not have a choice.
Yeah. Awareness. So there was no consciousness.
None. But Iblis had a choice. Iblis had a choice. And he chose not to do it. So for Iblis, there are consequences. Look at the word
Hmm.
consequence. Con means with,
Mm-hmm.
sequence.
Hmm.
Consequence means that now you have to trace the sequence of things to see where that thing ends up after disobeying Allah or after obeying Allah. There's a consequence for obeying Allah, but we usually use the word consequence to mean something bad.
Hmm.
Be aware of the consequences because you set in motion a frequency that's going to develop into a sequence of things that happen to you sequentially until your fate.
Hmm. So the pupils where it expands when you go in sun?
No, it does the opposite.
No.
Yeah,
Oh,
because it's
okay.
getting too much light, so it contracts to keep out the excess light. When it goes into the dark, it has to see more, so it expands to let in more light because there's less light in the environment.
Okay. So I have to
So,
study
so
the eye
in other
structure.
words, if you look in the mirror, go into the restroom or the bathroom or and have a little flashlight or your cell phone, whatever you call that, right? And just
Mm-hmm.
stand in front of the mirror, look at the size of your pupils, and then turn that light on, that flashlight on your phone, and you'll see your pupils immediately dilate.
Yep.
You turn it off, they'll come back to normal. You turn it
Hmm.
back on, they'll dilate because they don't need that much light. Allah says in the Quran that Allah is not a waster, and therefore you should not be of the wasters. See, Allah doesn't even waste light.
Hmm.
Isn't that beautiful?
Yep.
Look at how many things we waste as human beings. We waste our lives drinking,
Yep.
smoking, partying, fussing, fighting, cussing, and fussing, and throwing away our children.
Mm-hmm.
We are the biggest wasters on earth as humans. Animals don't waste as much as we waste. It's not in their
Mm-hmm.
fitrah to waste. They make use of just about everything they do. Nature makes use of just about everything that she produces.
Mm-hmm.
So these are the instructing signs that Allah said we need to pay more attention to,
Mm-hmm.
right? So look at the second half of the word purpose, the POSE part.
Pause.
Yeah, it's pause. Oh, I did a beautiful set of lectures. I think there are 3 of them on YouTube where I
Mm-hmm.
mentioned the 3 levels of peace. That's what it's called, PEACE, the 3 levels of peace. And I
Mm-hmm.
speak about that word pause as being related consonantally to the word peace. And I also speak about the POSE in purpose being the word position.
Oh, okay.
So your purpose is the position that allows you to purr. When
Okay.
you create an atmosphere for yourself that allows you to pause, because they keep us so busy, so attracted to all kinds of foolishness and time wasting kinds of efforts and all that. When
Yeah,
we,
distractions.
yes,
It's like they're trying it really hard so we don't go to back our that purpose, that resting position, that frequency.
that's right.
So we waste our life in those distractions, wherever
Yes,
all those frequencies are.
yeah. And we know what a track is,
Yep.
TRACK. So when they give us TRACT, it's the same word, distract. That means to take you off of your track.
Hmm.
And of course, that T at the end is like the Tamarabutta, which means it can be influenced by outside forces. So
Hmm.
distractions are those things that people can create to interrupt your flow, to interrupt
Hmm.
you from getting to your desired purpose.
Hmm.
That's why they create all of these distractions to take you off of the track. You were on the right track going to Ohio, and then all of a sudden, whoever's driving the train went cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, and he pulled the lever, and instead of going straight on that Sirat al-Mustaqim, you went left. And now instead of being in Ohio, you're over in Pennsylvania somewhere. Nice
Hmm.
place, but that's not where my purpose is in Pennsylvania. I don't know anybody
Hmm.
in Pennsylvania. I don't have any work in Pennsylvania. Now I
Hmm.
got to work like heck to get back on track. So
Hmm.
when you get off track, you have lost your purpose. And the key is to stay conscious of those things which allow you to safely and securely reach your position. The position that once you reach it, you can relax like that kitten. You can close your eyes. A lot of kittens purr while their eyes are closed.
Mm-hmm.
They can fall asleep and still be.
Mm-hmm.
That's when you know you've reached your purpose. Now, if you
Mm-hmm.
meet somebody as a possible mate and your soul is not comfortable enough to rest to the point where you can close your eyes on that person, you're not worried about them hurting you, harming you, stealing from you. You understand? You have
Mm-hmm.
couples that can lay in each other's arms and they don't have any fear of the Diddy mentality, you know, that somebody's going to come in and start beating them up and cursing at them and doing strange things with other women in front of her.
Mm-hmm.
How can you rest?
Mm-hmm.
So there's no purpose. There are goals. The woman who gets involved in a relationship like that, she wanted $1 million. She got it. But did she reach her purpose? Did she reach the point where she could rest? Or every time this guy came in the room, she had to keep at least one eye open because she's
Mm-hmm.
anticipating a beating,
Yep.
a roughing up, a cursing out.
Mm.
See? So you can't achieve your purpose with people like that. So as you are looking, my wife and I, we're going to be doing a series of lectures soon, like in the next week, or at least 2 weeks from now. We're going to be doing a series of webinars on relationships.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I'll let you know when that happens. All right.
Yep.
And it's going to,
Please.
you won't have to be Muslim to benefit from it. All you got to
Mm-hmm.
be is what we talked about in the beginning, a true human.
Yeah, true human. Exactly.
Respecting other people, you know, other people's feelings, letting other people contribute what they know, what they don't know, ask questions about, whatever. That's the kind of audience we're looking for. And I predict that that particular webinar is going to grow into the thousands very quickly, because the
Mm.
number one concern of true humans is, I just want to live life and be left alone and not be bothered and not be hurt and harmed unnecessarily, and raise my
Mm-hmm.
family and teach my children and go out without fear of the neighborhood trying to just snatch my pocketbook. That's what the average person wants.
Yeah.
So we're going to be addressing how to return society to that level of comfort where they
Mm-hmm.
can then work on achieving their purpose, because you will never be able to achieve your purpose when you're under that kind of stress and strain. You don't have
Yeah, it's
time
really
to look for a
important
purpose. Yeah,
that
you don't have time.
one has to be in your frequency, in your soul tribe.
Yeah,
Otherwise, it's like you're stuck
yeah,
fighting the lower chakra, emotions,
yes,
feelings. And when you come
yes.
back, you have no energy
None. They've sapped
for
you
your
of all
purpose.
energy. No energy for the purpose. You might not even reach your goals.
Yeah, so the environment is really important. The people are really important because when there
Primary.
comes that alignment, there comes that all biofields, you're all so you get on the true road, or at least you start knowing that purpose.
You got it. So the next time we meet, we're going to go a little bit deeper.
Yeah,
This,
sure.
this is just prep for the emergency surgery that I'm going to give you through language. Most
Uh,
people need emergency surgery to remove things from their psyche and from their nervous system that is causing them unnecessary and uncalled for. Well, I'm not going to say uncalled for, because everything we get, we actually call for it. You have to learn how to turn that whistle off, that horn, that bugle that keeps blowing and attracting people towards you with all of their problems. You have to learn how to stop blowing that bugle.
mhm.
It's psychic. It's not magic. And all of what I'm saying is being addressed in the words, the beautiful words of the Quran itself.
Yeah,
I won't need any hadith to explain it to you.
yeah.
I can explain it purely from the words of Allah in the Quran. So I'm going to ask you if you have any final question before we break or before we leave for the night.
No, thank you so much. And for taking out time, for giving me your pure energy, pure attention. And I have a lot. And I'm doing these days, listening to your other lectures, going
Yeah.
back to that, because
Mhm.
every time I listen to those lectures, it hit me on a different level.
Yes.
And that's what I miss in my 28 years of life, because I just can't think linearly. It's, you give me one thing, I can give you lots of points. My mind works, multiple levels. It
Yeah.
doesn't make sense. What they are teaching in our education system or media and everywhere, it just doesn't make any sense. We are
Yes.
having those degrees for the sake of just, putting them on walls. It's not
Mhm.
making us a better human. We are far worse getting than even as compared to animals. So
Yeah.
that's the lovely thing, let's
Yeah.
become a true human
Yes. And the
and
first step in
solving
that
that.
direction, the first step
Yeah.
in that direction is to divest yourself of all artificial attachments.
Hmm.
When I say artificial attachments, I'm talking about from people, from places, from things, and from ideas, from all nouns. You have to consciously separate, consciously detach. Detach means to separate from the touch or the touch of those things. Whatever touches you is going to influence your nervous system.
Hmm.
If a fly lands on the hair on your arm, you might jump because it's interfering with your nervous system, with the pulse, the
Hmm.
flow, right? So you have to detach yourself from all artificialities, even if it's a relationship, even if that relationship is with your mother. It doesn't mean you have to leave the house if you live with your mother. It means you have to train yourself to detach yourself emotionally from the things that upset you that your mother says and does. It has to be with it. When you're in your mother's presence, it's almost like this. You're looking at her, but you're not really seeing and listening to what she's saying, not in a way that it will affect you emotionally. I heard a very famous man who you probably heard of. His name is Sadhguru. You've heard of Sadhguru?
Yeah, Sadhguru, Indian's famous.
Yeah, that's my man. He said something that stays with me to this day, and I heard him say it a couple of years ago. He said, "My problems." He said, "Your problems are not my problems." So I'm not
Wow.
going to respond emotionally as if what you're saying to me or saying about me is my problem. Whatever you think about me, especially the fact that most of what people think about you are from people who don't even know you.
Yeah.
Somebody in your college class, somebody, whatever, your third cousin on your mother's uncle's sister's side, that kind of thing. I don't know you. Yeah, you got my nose on your face. I get it, but that doesn't mean that everything you say is going to affect me emotionally and psychologically. No, I'm
Hmm.
responsible. Allah says, when you return to Him, you are returning fardan, bare and alone.
Hmm.
You were born alone, unless you were a twin or something, but then still you came out one at a time. So you were
Yep.
born by yourself and you're going to die by yourself.
Hmm.
And when you meet Allah, He's not going to have your mother and your brother's uncle on your sister's third cousin side with you to fend for you, to speak to Allah for you. There won't be no Muhammad the Prophet. There won't be none of the prophets that's speaking for you.
Hmm.
It'll be what you did as Amal. So the concentration then should be on what we're doing, not what other people are doing and saying about us.
Hmm.
That's what's causing the hell in people's lives. They're too busy registering what other people are saying about them and what they should do. I'm not here to tell you what to do at all. You don't have to do nothing based on what I tell you to do. You have to
Hmm.
think about it for yourself and then do a little experiment. Let me try a little bit of what he said and see if it works. If it doesn't work, can we talk about baseball next time we meet? Because that other stuff you were telling me is not working, Instructor. Well, you have that choice.
Hmm.
And I'm not going to lose any sleep over people who don't listen to my advice or whatever. It's my advice. I could be wrong. So that's why you got to keep checking stuff out that people tell you. You are responsible for researching what people tell you and verifying before you begin to edify what they say in the ears of other people. Make sense?
Yep.
So there's a phrase in English as I complete this session where it speaks about people turning over a new leaf. I learned to do that, Ayesha. And remind me next time to give you a better breakdown or a thorough breakdown of your name, both names. I learned to turn over a new leaf based on that advice from Sadhguru. I said, the leaf I'm going to turn over is the one of allowing people to criticize me and taking it to heart.
Oh, okay.
And like I said, they don't, even if you're my sibling, my brother, or even if you're my parent, you don't know me like I know me.
Yeah.
And even if you judge me to be weak or off in my judgment, how do you know Allah didn't allow me to change in the time between the last time you saw me and now?
Yeah.
My wife has a favorite saying that I like to repeat. She says, life, I love this. She said, life is a rolling video. See my hand with my camera?
Yeah.
She says, so do not judge it by its snapshots. Life is not a Polaroid where time becomes still, paused at the moment that you did something bad or thought something wrong or displeased the law in any way. That's a moment of time in your life, but life is a rolling video. There's a new scene to be shot. If you go into a movie and you sit down in the middle of the movie and the hero is getting banged up and beat up and chased up a tree by the dogs or whatever, and you say, oh, this is terrible. I thought my hero was the good guy. I'm leaving this theater. Now, if you leave at that point, you left at a snapshot. But the movie is a rolling video. You're not going to be sitting there to see the hero triumph. If you leave psychologically because of what other people are showing you as yourself, still shots, Polaroid shots, and you allow yourself to stay there in that moment, because that's what emotions do. It takes you right back to the moment when something bad happened or when something great happened. Your emotions will take you right back there and you'll relive it, relive it. You got a divorce and you're going to relive that last argument you had with your husband. You understand? People will just relive it for 10 years. Yeah, I've experienced this. People will relive something for 20 years. And when you see them again and they start talking about it, it will be as though it happened that morning. And you ask them, what's the matter now? You remember what you did 20 years ago? Come on now, really? So they put their whole life on pause when they should be putting their whole life on purpose. You pause just to get a momentary assessment of the environment, what you're working with, what you have, what you might have lost along the way. Then you say, okay, I know where to pick up and start from here. Then you take your finger and you put it on the pause button, you press it, and now you're in record mode again. Do not get, what are you going to get if you keep the tape player on pause? Except the moment that you stopped it. That's where you're going to stop. So take your finger off of pause, people. And put your finger on purpose, because purpose is going to keep you purring down the track towards your real destination, where you can rest in the way that Allah wants you to rest when He says, welcome into my Jannah, among my ibad, among my workers. Then they call that rest too. When Allah lets you into the Jannah, that's the real rest. But if you leave it up to these people who are designing this world, you'll be resting in peace, just like the people in the graveyard.
Yeah.
And a word to, what they say, a word to the wise is sufficient. Okay? It was my pleasure to meet you today.
Same here, sir.
I hope you came away with a little something that you can work with for until we meet again, of course.
All right. Take care.
Okay.
Salaam
Thank you.
Alaykum.
Alaikum salam.